I'm Chaz Barnett, D lineman at Rock Canyon, committed to Air Force, and you're listening to Playmakers Corner.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Gideon, and today we have a very special guest with us here. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Chaz Barnett, and I go to Rock Canyon.
Very nice. Down in kind of like in Highlands Ranch, kind of close to Castle Rock, right?
Yeah, just around there.
Very nice. And I mean, Rock Canyon. I was able to watch you this year against Pooter, which was a very interesting game to be at. What was it like, that first game of your senior season?
I think, as for everyone, you always start out slow. And I think for us, it was definitely kind of, seeing where our team was and seeing it was kind of a big game because it was like, I don't think anyone was really sure how good we were going to be and if we really had the potential to do as well as we did in the years before. But I think we definitely came out a little slow. But we picked it up, and obviously we won that game. So I think it was a great way to start the season.
Heck yeah. And I mean, you mentioned it there, like, looking back, Rock Canyon hasn't exactly always been as good as they've been during your time. And it seems like there's been a continuous progression, if you will. Because looking back, even when I was in high school, and wait, was your freshman year, was that the COVID season, like 2020, 2021-ish?
It was, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, looking back on it, how does it feel like being part of that development of a team from going 1-5 and you only beat Pooter by a score and a half, I think it was, to all of a sudden you're making it to the second round of the playoffs against a team with championship hopes.
Yeah, no, it was definitely crazy. I mean, Coach Meyer, he was the new coach. He came in my sophomore year, and he definitely, I believe he did a ton for the program. Definitely changed around a little bit of our culture because I think everyone was satisfied with not being the greatest, and I don't think everyone cared as much as they do now. But I think Coach Meyer really helped us see that we have the potential to be a playoff team and the potential to go a lot further than we thought. And yeah, we just kept getting better. This year, I wish we could have got third round because it kind of would have been the progression. But second round is still it's as far as we ever gone. So I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Heck yeah. And I mean, you've played in some pretty big games as time's gone on. A game that gets highlighted for me is Columbine last year in the playoffs. This year, obviously, Ralston Valley going up against some teams like Denver East and Arapahoe. What's been your favorite game to play in? Like, what's been your favorite game to play in over the course of your career?
That's a tough one. I might say, in my junior year, I think the Mountain Vista game, we lost in the last 3 minutes. It was a really tough loss, but I think it was really, really fun for me personally because it was super exciting. Like, we had the upper hand, and it definitely kind of sparked a fire a little bit in me. And ever since then, I wanted to beat Vista. So those have always been fun games, rival games like Vista. Columbine was not as fun because it was absolutely freezing, but it was still great playing in the playoffs, and playoff games are always super fun as well. So, but probably the Vista game last season.
Heck yeah. I mean, I remember how cold those playoffs were last year.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, like, and I mean, Vista last year ended up getting upset first round by Rocky Mountain of all teams. So
yeah, it was probably because it was super snowy, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of threw them off a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, if you look at it in very particular and convoluted way, a team with Rock in the title did end up beating them.
Yeah. I mean, that's good enough.
Yeah. Real quick, kind of a side tangent. Who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? Niners or Chiefs?
Definitely the 49ers.
Yeah, being from Colorado, it's impossible to root for the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty. Everyone that I know is rooting for 49ers, so pretty widespread fan base there.
Yeah, and I mean, heck, you played against Valerie your fair share of times, and so you know what McCaffrey's made of.
Yeah, no, do not like Valor. I don't think a lot of schools do because they always seem to beat everyone. But
yeah, oh, goodness, yeah, I actually have a couple of classes with Jack Howell who went to Valor a few years back, and
yeah,
no, that's a whole nother thing. But
oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, I mean, on the subject of Super Bowls, I mean, we've had some pretty good ones in recent years. We also had some bad ones, but there are a lot of big games all the time. So what's been your favorite like sports viewing experience as a fan?
I definitely think it was when I was younger. When the Broncos were actually a good football team, and we would consistently go to the Super Bowl. But probably the one that sticks out to me was like, I don't remember which Super Bowl it was, but we were playing Broncos were playing the Panthers, and I just remember that was a super fun game for me because I was with all my friends. So that was a while ago though.
Yeah, Super Bowl 50, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Goodness. Yeah, if you ever listen to the radio, I remember that I think it was 105.9 or something. They made a whole song for the Broncos for that
Oh,
Super
really?
Bowl run.
I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah, it was like it was a parody of that, like hey 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 da, 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 da. I think it's a Pitbull song.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, that was
That.
yeah. I think whew, I don't even thinking about how old you would have been during that makes me feel old. But
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of really good defensive players were going through the Broncos at that time. And I mean, when you're looking at linemen, I mean, I know Von Miller is kind of like more a outside linebacker / edge, but still played on the line every once in a while.
Yeah, no. The defense was great back then. You look back and you kind of see how spoiled we were being a Broncos fan, but
Yeah, yeah. I grew up with a Manning jersey, and all of a sudden, he retired, and I was like, wait a second, possible that we don't make the playoffs?
yeah.
But kind of back on the subject of defenses. I mean, as a lineman, you've had to go against some of the best offensive linemen that this country can produce. Colorado is a lineman factory, so well, you have to model your game off some of the top talent to be able to go off of that. Who are some guys that you model your game after?
You mean like NFL players?
NFL, professional, or NFL, college, guys that you used to play with, any of the above?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're a D tackle and you don't say Aaron Donald, then there's something wrong with you. But I mean, obviously, I love watching players like Aaron Donald. I used to love watching J.J. Watt. It's just players like that are so dominant, and it's really. I used to watch Aaron Donald's highlight tape before I would go to my games because it would just get me like excited to play, and you just kind of you strive to be like them, which seems impossible, but you wish you could be.
Hey, it is still possible. It is still possible.
Could be, yeah.
I mean, I know you're going to the Air Force Academy, so you're probably going to have to. You're going to be an officer for a while after you graduate, but never say never.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you never want to close that door, but it's definitely a pipe dream. But I'm gonna hopefully go for it, have a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, Air Force, if anything, for most of the season, they were absolutely dominant. And you're heading into that culture among a pretty solid recruiting class. So what separates you from other recruits across the country? What are some qualities that that just separate you from other D tackles, both in Colorado and nationally?
Well, to me, I think it's less of on the stuff like on the football field, and I think it's more of, I mean, personality. I definitely learned through my high school career. I definitely learned to work hard, especially in the times when you don't always love football. It's a grind, and I think that's something that I'll always take with me is even when you hate it, you got to do it like you love it. And I think that's definitely something that's a lot different for guys who choose to go to any of the service academies. Is I think it kind of takes a special kind of person, and I've seen that just with who I've met going there and the coaches who played there. So I definitely think, even though a lot of people look down on it, like obviously it's not like the Big Ten, it is the Mountain West, but I think it takes a certain kind of player and a certain kind of person to be willing to go to an academy, and I think that's why they're so dominant consistently.
Yeah, I was actually talking with a girl earlier today whose dad worked at the Air Force Academy for a while.
Oh wow.
And she was talking about the same thing, where she was like, yeah, like a bunch of these guys, like they have to know what they're getting into, and these are some of the most committed people out there. And she actually talked about, this might be interesting to get your perspective on. She talked about how they had that requirement lifted for COVID, where it was like guys could go to the Air Force Academy and then go to the NFL immediately after, and like just not fulfill that obligation. And then when they reinstated that, some guys were not exactly happy, I'll say. So what was your reaction when you heard that well, first when you heard that they were reinstating that need, and then when you heard some of the guys who were going there were recruits saying, okay, that turns them off of Air Force football?
Yeah, no, it's definitely harder. But I mean, the way that it's been explained to me is, they want people that want to go to the NFL. They want that caliber of player. And if you really want it, and if that's your goal, and they're going to make it happen. I know you can serve in the off season, or you can do your service after. Like I talked to a couple of the coaches who they had a chance to go to the NFL. They went directly after they got out, like played for like 2 years, and then they were like, I don't think this is going to work out, and then got straight back into the Air Force and did their service. But I think to me, it's just, I still think it's a possibility, and I think if you're good enough, they'll make it happen. And if you have a successful career, what I've been told is that sometimes you may not even have to serve. So I think it's definitely still on the board, and I think most people that I know, like the recruits who go there, I mean, most of them still want to at least try and see how they fare. But it's definitely a little harder, but I definitely don't think it's off the table.
I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, hey, it's good to have that perspective on it. That clarified a couple of things, because I wasn't fully clear on that myself. So thank you for giving some clarity on that.
Of course, yeah.
And I mean, looking at it, you're going to be joined at Air Force by a lot of really high quality in-state players. So we're looking at guys like Tyrese Johnson, like Peyton Noble, Kalungo Wakalanji, Liam Zarka, and then Grady Forsyth. How does it feel to be able to join some of Colorado's top talent at a school like that?
I mean, it feels great. I think Air Force is like no other school. I mean, you don't have people coming and going. You don't have transfers. So I really just think the brotherhood that I'm going to build there and the relationship that you have with your teammates is just going to be really, really unique because you're with them all 4 or 5 years if you go to the prep school, no matter what. So I'm really excited for that and to meet more people. I mean, I've only met I went on an official visit and there was like 15 of the kids, but I know there's more because they bring in a really, really large recruiting class. So I'm just really excited to meet everyone.
Very nice. Yeah, hey, that's a good mindset to have about it. And I mean, you've played your fair share of the guys that I just mentioned. Now that I think about it, and goodness, what's been your favorite matchup? Like during your high school career, like as an individual, and then what's been your favorite matchup to play as a team?
I feel like you kind of got to say your teammates. I mean, I love playing we got some really good linemen. I mean, we got Spencer Rathbone, who's committed to Wyoming. Jack Monroe, he just committed to Mesa. Preston Duman he's still really young. I mean, we got a ton of great up and coming guys too. So I think you got to say your teammates. I mean, you're going against them every day. The 1v1s, they get a little heated sometimes, but I've definitely had the most fun going against, those guys that you're practicing with every single day. And I mean, it's fun to make each other better because, the way I looked at it, it was like, I need to be the best guy that these guys play against. And so if they, mess up, should be like dishonor to me, because if they can block me and they can't block this guy, then it's basically showing that he's better than me. And I don't think that's true about anyone in the state. So, but yeah, definitely my teammates.
I mean, hey, there you go. I actually think that's the first time that we've had someone shout out the team, but
yeah, gotta shout out the teammates, man. They're the ones who make you better.
Yes, sir. And I mean, hey, when you're talking about Spencer, you'll be playing against each other here for the next 3 to 4 years. How do you feel about that?
I'm very excited. Very excited to see him, especially because we almost played as teammates again. But I'm very excited to play against him. I think it'll be super fun.
Yeah, I mean that's the type of thing where did you guys play in middle school together, or was it just high school?
I did not play in 8th grade, so it was just high school.
Okay, but still 8 years of 4 years of being teammates, but 8 total years of matchups.
Yeah, it'll be very fun.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about it a little bit earlier with some of your teammates, but who's someone that you played against over the course of your career who you would say was underrated?
Like as a team or as a player?
Both.
Underrated. I'm trying to think. I'm terrible with names, and I honestly barely remember games. Like the only time I really remember is when I watch film. So I don't even think I could name a player, but I think Denver East had some really big linemen, and there were some good guys, but no one that was really that special to me. I think Ralston Valley probably had some of the best offensive linemen that I've ever played against. But overall, yeah, I think Ralston Valley had probably the best lineman, most underrated maybe. Yeah.
Hey, fair enough. I mean, heck, if Ralston's line continues at this level of production, they may be a offensive player of the year candidate this time.
Definitely.
Is there anyone? I know you just said you're not like the best at remembering players like particular, but is there anyone that you didn't have a chance to play against where you look back and you're like, I wish the idea had put that one on the schedule?
I think there's definitely people I wish I could have played again, but I mean, obviously, I kind of wish I could see how I fared against like some of the best linemen like Creek. I would have wanted to play Columbine again. I mean, I think it's fun to play the best guys. So
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it, You got some really good interior offensive line guys here. Like, I mean, you played Jack Heath a few times, right, from Mountain Vista?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually saw him against Ralston, and he and Tyrese went at it the whole game. But yeah, as I said, Colorado's the lineman factory.
Definitely.
So we talked about like in season workouts and how your teammates have helped with that. But who are some players that, if you did like off season work, like going to like a sports training facility or doing any of that type of stuff, who are some guys that you worked with in the off season who've made an impact on your game, and what was that impact?
I worked a ton with Spencer Rathbun, Jack Monroe, and Preston Duman, and a graduated senior, Duke Holter. We were all in the same program along with a ton of other guys, and the entire off season it was pretty much just 1v1s, hitting drills, footwork drills. So I got countless reps against them, and I definitely off season was I couldn't do it without them because we were constantly doing 1v1s and stuff like that. So that's what I was saying before is that they really helped me be better.
Very nice. Yeah, and I mean, you've gotten yourself to. I mean, they've helped you get to the level where you're among some of the best and going to one of the better defenses in the country. And I mean, when you're looking at it, do you believe that Colorado talent is overlooked compared to national talent? Because like when we're talking about it, guys like Spencer, guys like Caleb, heck, guys like yourself. I mean, if you're playing in somewhere like Texas, Georgia, Bama, may not have more offers. So what's your thought on that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, no, I think we definitely are. I mean, a lot of schools that recruited me, they told me, they're like, yeah, you're the first Colorado guy we've had in like a long time. So I think we definitely get overlooked. But I mean, it helps to be at schools like Valor because I don't think they get overlooked as much because they just have such good recruiting. And I definitely think it would help to be at a school like that where they know what they're doing. But I think overall, there's a lot of good players here, and I think sometimes they go unnoticed for other states where the football is kind of like a staple. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know Colorado's not a God family football state, but I mean, outside of that, are there any other reasons you can think of where it's like why you think we're overlooked, or is it just kind of that not as centric of a culture?
I mean, I don't know. I just think it's like, I mean, when you look at places like Texas and stuff, it's just like when you think about Texas, you think about football, and they have such large schools down there with like insane amounts of kids where they have enough kids where they can do like recruiting. And so I just think it might just be because we don't have as big as schools, or it's not like a staple of our culture like it is in some other states. I mean, yeah, that's probably definitely one of the reasons that we get overlooked a lot.
It makes sense. Yeah, that very much makes sense. I also just realized that I said Caleb instead of Jack earlier when I meant Jack Monroe when I said Caleb earlier, so that's on me.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But okay, so we've talked about it a little bit about the season and how all of that went. We talked about I mean, as you said, every team season starts slow, but the slower start against Pooter and how you worked your way through the schedule. If it's all right with you, could you run us through like a week by week of how this last season went for you. You know, the good, the bad. If there's any interesting or funny stories that you want to tell, like any of those, or yeah, just a week by week.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we really had a ton of good coaches this year. I mean, Coach Harrell and Coach Mulaney, those are definitely some of the best defensive coaches that I've ever worked with. So it was really fun working with them because they would put in like countless hours of film, and we would always have like these huge slideshow breakdowns with percentages and stuff like that. And so it really made watching film kind of easier for me because I was confident in my coaches and I was confident in what they were saying, what they were telling me. But yeah, week by week, I mean, there's too many funny stories to count. I think probably the most fun would just be like practices where we had bad weather because obviously it's really fun in the rain and it's fun in the snow. And then sometimes we'd also go to like indoor sports complexes, and that would be tons of fun because it's not as grueling because you can't really do hitting and stuff. So it'd be more of like you're kind of just having fun, and then I mean you're dialed in for an hour, but the rest of the time is kind of just having fun with your buddies and stuff. But I mean I got really close with everyone on the team, and there's too many funny stories to count. But I mean I had a great time this season. I wish it could have lasted longer, but I think we did great.
Yeah, and I mean, what you mentioned there about just being able to have a good time with your I mean, that's the most pure part about it, right? Like that's the most pure part of the sport.
Definitely, yeah, no. I think it's really important, especially in position groups. Like we would do this thing, we called it lineman dinner. So we would take all the linemen and we'd go out to dinner like before game day. And I think stuff like that is just really important because it's like if you're not close with your teammates and you can't rely on them, I mean you don't really have a good team. So I think stuff like that is just it really helps the season go by faster and be more fun when you have teammates that you like.
Heck yeah, and I mean, it's the dumbest thing when you said lineman dinner. The first thing the first thing my mind went to was that meme where it's like the girl dinner.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And oh goodness. And what's your favorite? What was your go-to like pregame, or I mean, what was your go-to lineman dinner meal?
We went to Mod Pizza pretty much every single time. We have like a little spot in the back where we go, and there's some very good memories made there for sure.
What's your order at Mod Pizza?
I get the Mad Dog, so it's like basically a ton of meat and stuff. It's really good.
Oh, sounds. I'm gonna have to try that. I always go for. I feel kind of bad for the chefs when I order, but hey, I get what you're saying there. And
Yeah, for sure.
what's your go-to like or what's your pregame like snack or meal look like?
So we would always have like little sack lunches, and it kind of vary. But that was like right before the game. So probably my favorite would be we had like these croissant sandwich things. They were really good. I think that was pretty much everyone's favorite. But I kind of liked having the little sack lunches because we would like if we played at 7, we would always all meet as a team at like 3:30, and we get to eat together. So like you're together for a while before the game. But that was what I ate kind of like right before.
Oh, that croissant sandwich.
Yeah, it was good. Like we have a lot of good moms that help with that stuff. They really
Heck
did
yeah.
a good job.
Shout out to all the moms who prepare all the snacks and all that out there.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, I feel like every time I'm about to begin a new thought, I accidentally interrupt what you're saying.
No, it's all good.
But so you mentioned it a little bit before when we were talking about the community that you guys were able to build on the team, and like the position groups in particular with how you guys were able to bond. But what separated this 2023 Rock Canyon team from your competitors in 5A?
I think even though I don't think a lot of people thought we were, I think you could ask every single D lineman on our team, and they would all say that we were the best in the state, which I know is probably a little far-fetched. But I think it's important to believe that. Our coaches told us that. Our coaches told us constantly that we have the talent to be the best in the state. I mean, we have a lot of great D linemen, especially in the future. But I think that's just kind of what we thought the whole time, is like, we can't be. I always said this before games. I said, we're too good to do bad. And I really believe that. I mean, we had a lot of talent. So I think constantly we were thinking, like, you got to think you're the best in the state if you want to be the best in the state. So I think that's kind of separated us from other teams.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's a good mindset to have. Like, but I mean, you guys were certainly in that conversation this season.
I mean, I think we're up there. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but if you ask me, we got tons of talent. I mean, I wish I could have played with these guys for another year, but
yeah. And I mean, pretty darn. I mean, obviously you didn't go out with a chip, but you went out about as strong as stronger than a lot of guys or a lot of teams, I'll say. And I mean, I'd say that you guys left a pretty good impression and a pretty good path for the younger guys to follow. But I mean, looking back at this past year, what are some lessons that you hope the younger guys take with them into these next few seasons?
I really hope that they kind of keep driving. Like, I know we lost a lot of great players this year, and we also lost a lot of great coaches, but I hope they kind of like don't lose hope a little bit in that kind of sense. Like, I hope they keep striving. I hope they don't think that they won't be able to make it as far as we have, and I hope they keep thinking that we're the best in the state, because I think we can be. But I just hope they keep working, putting in the work to be better.
Heck yeah. And I mean, there are some dudes there who are going to hopefully be carrying on that legacy, going to be continuing to say we are among the best of the best. We are the best in the state. So who are some teammates of yours that people around the state should be on a lookout for next year, that you can look back in a couple of years when they are the best D line in the state and say, I told you so?
Yeah, I mean, we had a ton of great guys, not just on the D line. I mean, defense in general. I mean, Cooper Malaniak, I think that's how you say his last name. I just called him Maniac all season long. He's going to be a dog. I think he's trying to switch positions to D end. But we also got a ton of great linebackers. I mean, we got Levi Shields. He's going to be great. Stout is going to be great next year. He was great this year. I think we also got some offensive linemen who will probably play with both ways as well. Preston Dooman, I've talked about him a little bit. He's going to be great. But I just think we got a ton of young guys who got time to kind of work on their trade a little bit. But as long as they keep working, I think they got the time to be great. So.
Very good. Yeah, that's I mean, it's good that you have confidence in those guys heading forward, and I mean, fingers crossed that you're right on that. I certainly hope that you're right on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to them. If they don't work for it, they won't be good. So,
I mean, if there's anything that you guys have shown over the past 4 years, going from 1-5 to a home team in the playoffs, then hard work is it.
Definitely.
But I mean, going back to the individual a little bit, we Over the course of the year, I mean, I saw straight out the gate. Like you remember when we talked after that Pooter game and just
Yeah.
all around solid time. Abe Chatilla, I kept trying to advocate for him, and I plugged him to everybody that I could, but I mean, just very strong impression. But when it came down to it, you were listed as one of our all PMC D tackles in 5A. And I was kind of wondering what your reaction was when you found when you looked at your Instagram one day and you were like, wait a second, what?
I mean, as you can imagine, it feels really good to know that the work you did paid off. I mean, there's a lot of times through off season where I was really kind of like, man, is this what I want to do? Is all this really worth it? And when you look back on it, I mean, it feels really good. Like, I'm so proud of what I've done and what we as a team have done. So I think it's a little bit of relief for me, but at the same time, it's kind of like it kind of sets the fire in me again. It's like I want to keep working and I want to keep having success that I've been having and in college, and I want to be like have the recognition that I think I deserve. And so you got to keep working for it, got to earn it. But yeah, definitely felt it was a great feeling.
Very good. And I mean, yeah, all around just great season. And I mean, good way to have that light a fire in your belly and tell you to keep on moving forward. And I mean, if there's one thing that I've got from this conversation so far is that's part of what the culture change around Rock Canyon football has been over the past 4 years is, well, like you said it earlier, like when we were freshmen, people were okay with not being good. And
Yeah.
now the culture, oh, sorry, you go.
No, I was just saying, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And now it's at the point where you're like, where you just said, I want to keep pushing and I want to keep earning that recognition. So that makes me wonder, what would you say is unique? So two aspects here. So what would you say is unique about the Rock Canyon athletics, like Jaguar athletics? And then what would you say is unique about Rock Canyon's community?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like facilities and coaches, I mean, we have it just as good as everyone else. And so I think when it comes down to like the culture, it's really just we will be as good as we want to be. We have the talent for it. And I think the more success we get, the more people are like we kind of said before, realizing that we can be a good team and we have everything that everyone else has. And I don't think we thought that for a long time. Um, our coaches would always say that to us. They'd always be like, oh, all these other teams like Valor, they're all putting on their gear the same. They're the same as us. I mean, they can have more fancy stuff, but it doesn't really mean anything. Um, so I just think anyone could beat anyone when it comes down to it. But in terms of the community, I think it's definitely um, a little bit harder because I don't think we get as many kids who want to play football and want to like put in the work for it because we're definitely a more academic school um, than sports school. I mean, we have a ton of good sports, but I think the majority of kids don't really want to put the work in and do a sport. So I think it's hard for us to kind of get recruits and attract attention. Like I know a lot of middle schoolers are kind of just choosing where they want to go now. And when you look at schools like Vista, it's very attractive for offensive players, but I think Rock Canyon's got everything everyone else has. And obviously it's a great school, great academics, great area. So I just love everything about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I mean the people who invest, it sounds like really, really invest and get involved with it.
For sure, yeah. No, our coaches, I mean, they all chose to be here. I know a lot of them chose to be here over other options because they love the school. So I think it's definitely a great place.
Yeah, and I mean, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but those coaches, it sounds like, do a pretty good job of getting you guys ready for the playoff environment, and what that means. And what would you say is different about the playoffs in compared to the regular season? Because I mean, obviously, everybody that plays in the regular season, but when it gets down to it, what is different when you're talking turkey?
I mean, obviously, you're playing the best of the best. I don't think a lot of people or a lot of teams are really ready for it. Obviously, I don't think we had everything we needed to go in and beat Ralston Valley coaching wise. But I don't think we wanted it as much. So I definitely think it's, for some teams, it can be more helpful because it's kind of like, I don't want to say life or death, but like if you lose, you're out. And I think for some teams that kind of gives them more motivation. But I think for others, it can be harder because it's like late in the season. You're kind of ready for off season. You may not believe that you can, like, even if you go third round of the playoffs, you may not believe that you're going to go to state, or like you may not just think that you have the potential. So for others, it can be hard to stay motivated, and keep putting the work in like you did on the very first game of the season. Keep watching film. But I mean, I really loved it. I think it's playoffs are a great time. You get to play the best teams. You get to play great players, and I think it's more time you get to spend with your team. I loved every second of it. So.
Heck yeah. And I mean, you mentioned it a little bit there when you're talking about guys almost running out of gas as the season goes on. Like you mentioned, some guys just want to get to the off season already. But how could preparation, not just at Rock Canyon, but like in general around the state, how could preparation for playoffs be different in your mind?
Yeah, I think that happens with almost every guy. I mean, there's a certain point where the grind kind of gets to you and you start getting gassed out. You're like, it gets close to the end of the semester. You're like, I just want to focus on my grades. And I think a lot of football players have a hard time keeping their grades up during the season as well. But I think it's just hard to put in the amount of work that you did at the start of the season, because you don't have that kind of motivation. So when it gets to playoffs, I mean, it just comes down to how bad you want it. And if you actually want to beat those guys, if you're like, either way, it's a win-win. If we lose, I get to go to off season. If we win, we get to move on. I just don't think that's the kind of attitude that you got to have, because you won't be motivated and you're not going to put the work in if you're fine with losing.
I mean, you said it, like, you're not going to put the work in if you're fond of losing. And I mean, that thankfully in the state, a lot of guys put that work in, and you see it all over the place. But you also talked about this a little bit when we were talking about what's unique about Rock Canyon. But you mentioned that there are a lot of guys who play both ways, like the D linemen who are playing both ways, who put in that work all season long, who are preparing for the playoffs. And honestly, in the higher divisions in 4A and 5A, you very rarely see guys on the team playing both ways. Like 1A, 2A, 3A, all over the place. But 4A and 5A, like, I could count on one hand, count on both hands the amount of teams that consistently play guys both ways. So what are your thoughts on that, and how and what you've seen on both sides of the aisle in 5A?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best players should play. If you can manage playing both ways, I think it's fine. I personally don't love the fact of a lot of players going both ways, because I just don't think they'll play as good. Like when you're super gassed, you're not going to do good at offense or defense. But I think we did it pretty good this season. Like I played a little bit of both ways. Like we had some packages where I would go in as like an extra tackle, and I didn't mind that at all. I thought it was fun. So I think if it's done correctly, it can be great. I mean, obviously you want to have your best players playing, but I think for definitely some teams it's really hard because when you're having your guys go both ways, you get really gassed and you're not playing your best. But I know for a lot of teams, they just best players play. I think it gets hard to play both ways, but if you're the best offensive tackle and the best defensive end, and you can play both ways and still play your best game, then I don't see anything wrong with that.
Hey, fair enough. And I mean, as you said, they slid you in where they needed you and where your talents would be best used. And we see that a lot from some of the top talents around the state. But that makes me wonder, like, about how that affected your recruiting and like what did your recruiting look like? Would you mind giving us a lowdown on what your recruiting journey looked like?
Yeah, I didn't. To be honest, I had no clue what I was doing. Like, if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have started earlier. Like, I probably would have went to camps my junior year and got my film out because I didn't really do much of that. So all my recruiting kind of started like just this last summer and through this season. But I mean, I wouldn't have changed anything. I mean, all you need is one good offer. But in terms of like schools that recruited me, I think most of my offers. I mean, the main big ones for me were Wyoming, obviously Air Force. I had West Point. Harvard offered me. Northwestern. Those were kind of just like the main schools I was looking at.
All right. Yeah. And then so a couple of like smaller FCS, like Eastern Washington, I saw as well. So you kind of had like all over. But
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
those are all. Oh, sorry, you go.
No, yeah, I was just saying, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, those are all pretty high performance schools, both in terms of like obviously a service academy, but also Harvard.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah. What are some things that you were I mean, obviously, like good programs with Harvard and Air Force and West Point, but what are some things that you prioritized from a school or a program, and how did Air Force fit those needs best?
So I was just kind of my whole recruiting. I was just kind of looking for the best balance. I mean, I wanted good academics and I wanted good football and I wanted a good balance between those. And I mean, Air Force really fit it well for me. I mean, a lot of schools that you look at, like Harvard and stuff, I mean, not to talk bad about them at all. They're a great school, great. Ivy League football is still real football. Um, but I think the more I traveled to schools, the more I realized I was like being closer to home is it is a kind of important thing. And I really like the fact that my parents can drive like 45 minutes and they can come down and watch my games every Saturday. And that became more and more important to me as well. So that was a big thing. I think Air Force just has the best academics and the best football program. I love the coaches there, and I love the guys there, and I love the kind of person that chooses to go to the academy. And so yeah, those are kind of the main things that made me decide for them over schools like Harvard or Wyoming or UC Davis.
Heck yeah. And I mean, when I go to CSU, so every once in a while they're probably going to be driving 45 minutes north.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch the Air Force CSU game this year with the snowballs?
I did. Yeah, that was crazy.
Did you think they'd actually get penalized for that?
No, I didn't think that they would. I mean, it makes sense that they did, but it was kind of like messed up because I mean, that has nothing to do with the football. But, I mean, I guess it does make sense because it would affect coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that was honestly, in my opinion, like the turning point of that game in terms of energy.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a big deal.
Yeah, and it all of a sudden it was like all the energy was literally sucked out of the crowd.
Pretty much, yeah.
What role do you think the crowd plays in a football game? Because I mean, you talk to some guys and they're like, yeah, I just tune them out altogether. And some guys you're watching the game and you can tell that it's getting to them. So what's your opinion on that?
For me, I don't know. I mean, obviously in high school, it's like you kind of just tune it out. And I think in college, it'll probably be the same thing. I think it's just nice to know that you have, like, I like to know that my family's there and stuff like that, and knowing that like there's people that are supporting you. So I think it could be a good and bad thing, but I mean, it hasn't really affected me this far, and I mean, I don't think it will too much in the future either. So.
Hey, fair enough. And I mean, obviously you have a little bit of experience with like media, because I mean, when we're looking at it, you had a pretty successful high school career, and you played in those big moments with the big crowds, and those big moments with big crowds and loud noises ends up with, I mean, interviews and media and social media. And how has the media and social media impacted your perspective on the sport and your individual spotlight?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really realize how big a deal it is, but I mean, the whole like Twitter thing, it's huge for recruiting. I didn't really realize that. Like, I was always kind of one of the guys who was like, I mean, I don't really care about like, like, marketing myself. I never really liked that part of it. But it's definitely necessary. It's definitely a big deal. It makes you realize how big of a thing it is. Like, you don't realize how big recruiting is and how like college football is a huge moneymaker for schools. So you don't realize how important it is. But in terms of how I played, I mean, I don't really think it affected me too much. I mean, I just tried to tune it out for most of the season, post highlights, stuff like that.
Hey, fair enough. And I mean, you talked about it there a little bit with how you market yourself and like putting it. I mean, you learned over the course of the year like how to do it. But let's say you get to on the next level, you you accidentally knock over a helmet and a genie comes out and he says, "I am the NIL deal genie." If you were to ask me about any company on earth, I would be able to get you a deal, a brand deal with them. What would your dream like brand deal be?
I mean, I don't know. I like Nike. I wore Nike stuff all year long, so I guess it would be them. But I think when it comes down to it, I mean, anything would be great, but probably Nike just because I wear their stuff most of the time.
Fair enough. I mean, well, oh, I was about to ask, what do you think the difference is between Nike and Adidas, but I'm not going to open you up to that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If you put me in two different cleats, I don't think I would be able to tell any difference at all. So either way, it's two.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, from here on out, I mean, like for the rest of, I mean, over the summer, looking forward, you're gonna have a lot of work regardless, no matter what cleats you got.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going into any level of college football is tough, but I mean, looking at it, what are your goals moving forward, like for college ball?
I just want to be really successful. I want to be the best player I can be. Um, I want to keep working at it. I think weight is a big goal for me right now, just because that's what I'm focusing on. Because kind of more of the football stuff can happen a little later in the off season. So I'm trying to get as big as I can. Hopefully, by the time I go to college, I'll be a solid 265, 270, and then just keep slapping on weight. And yeah, I just want to be the best player I can be.
Very good. And I mean, looking at it, the last number that we have you at in terms of weight is about 252. Are you comfortable sharing where you're at now?
Yeah, I weighed myself this morning. I was 258.
Hey, there you go. There's another 6.
Yeah, making progress slowly, but putting on
Yeah.
the weight the right way.
Heck yeah. And I mean, what does your schedule look like for like how are you working to reach that goal of getting your weight up?
Just eating, pretty much eating and lifting, eating and lifting is pretty much like my main focus right now, and it's good because I mean that's kind of my favorite part. I mean I love the lifting and the eating, so you just gotta hit the gym and gotta shove the food down even when you don't want to eat.
Hey, there you go. What's your favorite lift?
I'm really good at bench, just like naturally. That's probably my favorite.
Oh, but bench is probably my second least favorite, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah, like clean. Well, I broke my wrist a couple years back, so I just physically can't like do clean and jerk anymore.
Yeah.
But bench, I I I can squat out. I can squat just about anybody out of the gym, but bench, my bench max is like half of my squat max.
Yeah, no, it's just honestly when it comes down to it, like everyone has their little specialties. Like I've known guys that can barely bench anything but can squat like insane amounts, so it makes sense. I mean, some people just get lucky or some people just kind of get unlucky.
Some people just have good leg or arm genetics.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you've talked about it a bit today, like helping, well, how other guys have helped you to get to where you're at, and helping other guys get to like I think you said it was Puman. Yeah. Oh no, not Puman. Preston Duman. You
Yeah.
mentioned him a few times, and helping each other get better, and I mean helping yourself get to the point where you want to be. So, would you ever consider coaching?
I don't know. Maybe. I think coaching's like it's almost harder than being a player. Like just looking at what my high school coaches did, like the amount of film work, and it's almost a bigger part of your life as a coach than it is as a player. So it's definitely really hard, and you got to love it even more. But possibly, I mean, I know a lot of guys who, when they go into the Air Force, their first assignment is actually being a football coach. So it could happen. I mean, I think I would enjoy it.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this a couple of times where you said if you could go back, you'd start with your recruiting journey earlier and start getting more like social media savvy. But if you could go back and meet a freshman version of yourself, the first day you stepped on campus at Rock Canyon, outside of that, start recruiting earlier, like what advice would you give to a freshman version of yourself, like on the field, relationships, academics, any of that?
Um, I've done pretty decent with academics. So I think the main thing I would kind of just tell myself is like you have a chance. Like as a freshman, I did not think I would ever be playing football in college, even at like the lowest level. Um, I just didn't think good enough. I mean, I had a lot of position changes through high school. I started out as a linebacker, and I was decent. But um, the moment I really realized I had a chance was I was actually talking to the D line coach, Coach Mulaney, and he basically told me he's like, you have the talent, and the way you described it is like you have the keys um, to go as far as you want with this, and it's just up to if you want to. So I think that was definitely a big moment for me. Was like up until I talked to Coach Mulaney about it, I really did not believe I could go anywhere with this. So I think that's what I would tell myself is like keep working. You have a chance. You have just as good a chance as everyone else. So just keep putting the work in for it.
Heck yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Coach. Was it Coach Mullaney? Was it?
Yeah, Coach Ryan.
Coach Ryan Mullaney. And I mean, you've mentioned a few people during this, and now that we're getting towards the ends of it, is there anyone in particular that you'd like to mention who's been important to your academic, athletic career that you'd like to thank? This could include friends, family, significant others, other players that other guys that you've played with, coaches, anybody.
I mean, yeah, there's too many people. I mean, I know I already said it, but Coach Mullaney, or I call him Coach Moles, he's done so much for me. I mean, he has a program that I did over the off season, and I think that really, really helped me be as successful as I am. So I couldn't have been here without him, for sure. But also my parents, my mom, she cooked for me. She helped me get big. All my coaches and my family and friends, and obviously, I know I said this before, but all my friends on the football team and my O-linemen, I was going against them every day. I couldn't have done it without them. So I'm just really thankful. I wouldn't be here without all those people in my life that really helped me. So yeah. And everybody else who helped me along the way. I mean, there's countless people that I probably am not naming right now, but I couldn't have made it without everyone.
And thank you very, very much, Chaz, for coming on tonight. It was absolutely amazing to be able to talk to you about, I mean, not only your athletic journey, but the timeline of what things have looked like for Rock Canyon over these past 4 years, to listen to how you've developed as a player, your experiences, and what the difference is about how you were able to get to where you are today, and what you would do differently to, I mean, capitalize. I mean, you've already capitalized, but to start earlier in that process. And to everyone out there listening, thank you as well. We couldn't do this without you all, and it is our pleasure to be able to provide everything for all of you out there. And if you want to learn more about Colorado High School football, you can follow us at Playmaker Corner on Twitter. You could also follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Playmakers Corner. That was already taken on Twitter. And just make sure that wherever you are and whenever you are, you stay safe, you stay hydrated, and you don't get sick as much as you can. And we hope you all have a good one. Peace.